The Biker Scout, which I originally was not going to use, but I decided to because, hey, why not? The head got chopped off purposely. Pull back, there we go. Alright, so originally the head sat on there like that. I cut it off, and I'm going to start using a tripod. But I've got it cut at an angle where he actually looks like he's like kind of crouching forward like that. I will add some detail to the top of this backpack here. I'm going to use milliput. I have green stuff in milliput, but I'm almost done with the milliput, so I might as well use it up. The feet, I took, look at those gaps. I did that on purpose. I took my heat gun and I warmed up the bottoms of the feet, pushed it down so when he's on the bike, he'll look like he's actually like crouching forward like that. And with some milliput, I'm going to extend this pack, go a little bit further, because on the figures, the pack is a lot bigger on each side. So I'm going to extend that a little bit. The helmet here, the head, that visor, that doesn't go all the way to the top like that. It actually goes straight across, so I'll hit that with some milliput as well. I just got a chance to watch a build from a gentleman. I will get his channel's name here on the next update. But he ended up like making 3 or 4 of these guys like special customs. But his speeder bike build was like 6 or 7 parts. The last one being the Biker Scout, and he did some huge modifications on his, like chopping off the figure at the waist, or just above the waist, rather. I'm not going to plan on going that far because I want to get this done, but I do want it to look a lot better than what it is right now. And I think with just a few simple mods, I can get it looking like that. But yeah, I'm definitely going to adjust the visor. That's what someone actually mentioned that on one of the Facebook groups. And add some detail to the top of the backpack. Fill in all the gaps. Get some primer on it. And see what gaps are still visible through the primer. Fill those in, sand them down, and then start getting some paint on. Okay, I got the camera on a special arm. I have extended the packs that only were about so big. I put some milliput there, and using my sculpting tool, extended them out, made them look a little bit more realistic. I got them on both sides here, and I'm actually using, I think I mixed up a little too much, but it's not a bad thing because what I can do is, by mixing it with a little bit of water, as I drop that one on the floor, get a nice little worm going here. There are some huge gaps here since I opened up the feet with the heat gun. I'll go and get those filled in with some of this putty. Pull that off there. And then using a little bit of water, move my light here a little bit. I'm trying to do this and look at the camera and look at the display at the same time. But yeah, just fill in those gaps. I should have a decent amount on there. And since I have water on my fingers, it's going to make it easier to work with. And then we're going to get that one a little bit more at the back. Let's start to dry a little bit, so I get a little bit more on that finger there. And then it'll dry overnight, and what I can do in the morning is sand it down. So I've got plenty more to do tonight, so I'm going to be at this for a while. But I can take, get that little piece off there. Like I said, I mixed up quite a bit, so I don't want to waste it, because I know this stuff's not cheap. It's not super expensive, but I didn't buy it to throw it away. And then we're going to take that and put a little line there. I'm happy with that. Yeah, this, like I said, this thing is full of gaps, so I'll be brushing on a lot of this milliput tonight. But I like the way the packs turned out. They're not perfect, but neither is the sculpt, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. The one on the back, and I don't know if you can see it in this light or not, but I've got some milliput going all the way down. This one kind of opened up, so I gotta get some more in there and clean it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on this before it completely dries out on me, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished and sanded down. Okay, so I've given the Biker Scout a coat of gray primer. I'm not ready to paint him yet. The reason I do this is because, at least with the primer on there, you can see where I filled in the seams. If there's any that still need some touch-up work, which, looking at this, a couple real small ones there, but I think that can be taken care of with paint, just hidden away. The biggest one that I've seen, right there. And honestly, when I had this as bare plastic and had some filler in there and I was sanding it down, it feels smooth. But with the primer on there, you can see that there is a noticeable difference, and that will come out just like that if I were to paint it white right now. So what I'm going to do is put some more filler in there, sand it down a little bit, and then give it some more primer and see if that goes away. Okay, I did a little bit of work here, pulled out the bone saw and a couple other tools, Mr. Dremel. Decided that I was going to play around with this top of the backpack. It's not screen accurate, but you know what, I'm just going for something that looks pretty cool, and I think that should do the trick there. I did get a chance to sand down a few spots that some of the putty took over, so I have some crevices back where they're supposed to be. Pretty much the majority of the gaps are filled in. If I do find some after the next coat of primer, I'll deal with those. But with the way the head is positioned here, I didn't even take into account those antennae there. But what I'll do is I'll paint these two separately, and then just put the head on afterwards. I'm still debating whether I want a full-on coming at you type deal or if he's looking off to the side. I noticed that the bike does sit a little bit to the side, so I'll have to play around with that and see what looks good. But I'll let those dry there. There's a lot of sanding that happened on the top of the helmet here. That was the biggest problem area right there. You could see where it was. But yeah, they didn't join flush, so I had to do a little bit of surgery on that. But I'm going to go ahead and put this down. It's late. I'm going to get some sleep, and then in the morning I will go ahead and get another coat of primer on this and see where it takes us. Okay, so this is probably not the easiest things to try and see since I'm going white on white, but looking at it, the left hand side, our left, his right, those areas that are in white have been given one coat of thinned down Corex white. If I get a little bit closer, it's easier to see. This side is just primed. This side has one coat of paint. So there is a difference. It's very subtle, but you can see it. It's harder to see on the chest there. You just barely make out on the right hand side. It is a little bit more see-through than on the left there. I did find a seam that I didn't get all the way. I'm going to take care of that. I know this guy isn't going to be perfect. He never was. But I'm going to go ahead and let this dry. I'll get the right hand side, and then after that's completely dry, I'm going to fill in those gaps on the hand just because they're bugging me, and then give it another coat. I am liking the way the top of the backpack turned out. Like I said, it is not screen accurate. I'm not going for screen accurate. If you are a Star Wars purist, good for you. I'm glad you have time to make sure everything's perfect. I'm just going with what I think looks pretty cool right now, so not that saying some of these Star Wars purists, they don't have beautiful models. They do. This is just, I just want to get this guy done so I can actually have him sitting on the bike. I originally was not going to do it, but yeah, my mind changes from time to time. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this side done, and then after it's dry I will tackle that gap in the hand and give it another light coat of Corex white. I mean, when I'm talking light coat, this is, and it's not as thin as a glaze, but it's very, very watered down to the point where the old meme of too thin coats is, I'll actually this, oh, there's some paint in there. It's still pretty good even though it's watered down there. So I'm not displeased with that. Okay, so I'm going to get back to it and we'll catch you in a bit. Pedals. Okay, so for this next step I'm going to be using my wet palette. I usually don't bring this out too often, but for this step it's a lot easier. Basically the wet palette, it's an absorbent sheet that's under parchment paper, and it keeps the paint, well, keeps it wet, as in the name wet palette. So what I can do is I can paint all night with this if I wanted to, put a lid on it, and then when I open it up the next day it's still ready to go for me. It's a really nice tool and it helps a lot with this this step here of shading. That way I can control how much water I'm using to add to the shades. And for this first color I'm using this layer paint from Citadel. It's Karak Stone, and then I'll start bringing it up a little bit darker on each one after that. So basically all I'm doing is just going around the creases and let me move this light so it's easier to see it. There you go. So you can see a faint line in there. You can see it more because I deliberately put a little bit too much on there so you can see it. But I'm going to go over with the base color and clean this up after everything's done. So this is the tedious task right here, going around and hitting all of the creases and getting all that put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of the helmet first, and then actually what I want to do is go through and get some shots of everywhere that I need to put the black. So I want to get the black on here first before I start doing the shading. So okay, I will keep on this and you'll see what it looks like when it's when all the areas are shaded. Okay, so on closer inspection, the first color is down. Some areas are a little sloppier than others. I will cover that up with Corax white and then move on to the next shading color. Remember, in this technique we're shading from lightest to darkest just to give it subtle shading, just to give it more depth. These, I'll probably just put some panel line accent colors in there. But alright, I'm going to go on to next color, which is going to be this another layer paint from Citadel, Storm Vermin Fur. It's a brownish gray color. Actually what I'll do is I'm going to do a little bit of touching up with the Corax white first, and then I'll go ahead and move to the next shading color. Okay. Okay, so this is the following day. I've got all the shading colors on him. Got some of the black taken care of. I'm still probably going to put some panel line detailing on the vents in the back, and I have to paint a little bit of black on the back of the helmet there. But for the most part, the shading's done. I just have to do a little bit of cleanup on a couple areas where I hit it with the black, and then it'll be ready for highlights. In the meantime, I've started the body work here. I've got black for the suit underneath, and I did a little bit of contrast paint, apothecary, if I can say it right, apothecary white. There we go. First, that should be the only time I have to say that during this video. So that'll add a little bit of just a little bit of difference to the color. It'll break it up a little bit. It's still white, but it's more of a like a dingy white. So I'm going to finish up the black areas here. I've got some reference pics on my phone just so I can make sure I'm not hitting something that's supposed to stay white. And then yeah, I'll start going into shading on the white areas on the body. And since I was talking about the wet palette on the previous segment, since this is the following day, I just want to, I'll pop this open here, and upon closer inspection, the paints that I started with on here, they are still wet and ready for use. So basically just a little bit of that black there, and it goes on just like I was painting it yesterday. Okay, I am starting to shade all the black areas. I have one coat of Army Painter matte black going on here, and I decided that I'm going to work on the black first because I really don't want to do all this work on the white armor pieces and then go into the black and get some sort of a smudge or a drip on the work that I just did. It'll be a little bit easier to clean up the black than it would be to redo all that white that I was working on. So I'm going to knock this out real quick here. I'm doing a simple wash. It's actually two different colors right here. It's Citadel Shade Null Oil Gloss, the gloss version of it, and also a little bit of Drakenhof Nightshade, so I could get that real deep color in there, and that'll make it easier to get everything covered and give it some nice depth. And you're not even going to see the blue; it's just going to blend right in. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that, and we'll see what it looks like when it's done. I did the packs with one of the Citadel contrast paints called Skeleton Horde. A lot of the pictures I saw online, these packs they weren't completely white. Some were, some weren't, and I understand it's different perceptions, different people doing it. So I figured I'd give it a little bit extra color. Probably not going to mess with them too much because with the contrast paints, especially over this color, this Corax white base, it actually does all the shading and highlighting for you, and you can do it if you want, but I kind of like the way it looks right now. There are a couple spots like this one right here where it was pooling, and I decided, okay, well, I waited too long. Basically, that's what I did was I went to pull up some of that paint that was pooling, and it just took that whole area. So if I can't get it to get cleaned up with a second coat, I might just put some Corax white over this and redo it. That's the nice thing about these contrast paints. They go, you can, if you make a mistake, you just put a little bit of Corax white or gray sear or wraithbone or whatever color you prime the model with, and it'll go on just as easily as it did the first time. So, alright, I'm going to continue shading this, and we'll see what it looks like after it's done. But right now, you see how it's almost see-through on this black. This area right here on top of that, like right, yeah, if I can touch it there, by the neck area here, that's where I've shaded it so far. And I did use the Null Oil, the gloss version of the Null Oil, because I did want to have that little bit of a glossy finish to it, and I will go in with probably Dark Reaper and get some highlights on that black just so it'll stand out a little bit. So, alright, I'm going to get back to this and we'll see what it looks like afterwards. Okay, he now has a complete coat of shading on all the black areas on the uniform. It's got a nice sheen to it. It's not like a typical gloss because I basically just mixed two shades together, one of them being gloss, so it's more of a satin, which I'm actually really liking the way it looks. So I'm going to let this dry and go ahead and start looking at what colors I want to use for the highlights. I'll probably start with something dark, like I said, like Dark Reaper, and then work my way up to probably a neutral gray just for the very top highlights of the folds in the uniform. So, alright, I'm going to let that go, and I will go ahead and turn this back on after I start that. So, okay, time for some highlights on the black areas. I'm starting with some of this Army Painter matte black, and also, let's see, is it matte black? Yeah, matte black, I just want to make sure. And also the Citadel Dark Reaper. Basically what I'm going to do is do a 50-50 mix. Get that together there. It's still going to be very dark, but using the wet palette here, I'm going to blend that together. brush, nice point. This is such a larger figure than I'm used to painting. It's so funny. You've seen like the miniatures that I paint, but yeah, this is like way bigger. But there are some other figures that I have that in the stash that I will be working on in this series. And I'm just hitting the top most areas. I'm leaving all of the creases, the original black there, and I'm sure it's hard to see because this blend right here, it is so dark, it's going to really blend in with the black. You're just barely going to be able to see it, and honestly with the way the light is with this, I'm moving my light down here so you can see a little bit better. You can just barely make it out, but I mean, looking at it in person, it is there. But the next color that I use is going to be just a little bit lighter, so that'll be able to pick out some of the details. So I'm going to go ahead and keep at it with this. Like I said, I'm just a little bit of water there. Get a nice point on my brush. And I'm just going for the top so I can leave all those creases that I just gave a shade to with the Null Oil and Drakenhof Nightshade mix. I like the way that came out. It, like I said, the one was gloss and one was matte, so it's giving me this nice satin finish. And like I said, it's probably hard to see it right here, but looking at it dead on as I'm painting it, yeah, I can tell there's a difference. And there's going to be a few areas that might be easier to see than others. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and keep on with this. And after I've got the entire figure highlighted with this mix here, I will let that dry and come back with a lighter tone. I haven't decided whether I want to lighten up the existing blend that I have, since I have both colors readily available on the wet palette right now, but I will actually think about that as I'm working on this right now. It's all there just to give it some added depth with the highlights. You're looking at where the light would hit. That's going to look lighter on the figure. So okay, I'm going to keep at it, and like I said, it's hard to tell because I'm painting on a black area. But like I said, I can see it as I'm laying down the paint. And then after all the black is done, yeah, that's when I'll go and take care of the white, because the last thing I want to do is have all of my white shaded and all that, and next thing you know is, oops, I got that little mistake on there. But yeah, before I do that, I will go through, and there is a couple brush marks here and there that I have to clean up with the base color Corax white, and then after the shading is done with the white, as my work area starts to fall in, after the shading is done on the white, I can actually start to highlight, and I'll be using a pure white for that. Yeah, like right there's a little spot where something happened there. I'll clean that up. But yeah, the Corax white, it's got a little bit of a grayness to it. So once I start highlighting it with the white, it should come out really nice. And then after I'm completely done with the figure, before I put him on the bike itself, I'm going to spray him with a gloss finish, and then the all the uniform, the black parts of the uniform and the pack and all that stuff that I don't want to be glossy, I'll go ahead and give that a satin finish. But I am getting ahead of myself, so I'm going to get back to this because this is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, so I realized that one of the problems I was having trying to show you this with the colors is I was going up against my wet palette and it is pretty much just bleaching out all of my whites. So I'm going to go back to my cutting mat here, and yeah, you should be able to discern the difference in color there. Especially on the legs there, you can see some of it. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And the easy way out would just be to just go completely black and then put some sort of gloss on it, so obviously the light would hit the high spots for your highlights, but I wanted to add a little bit more of an interesting look to it. So it's still black, but there's more than just the black going on. And certain angles you can see the bluish gray of the Dark Reaper, and then like I said, I'm going to go one more past this, and then let's see if I can. This poor guy's getting jostled around like I was King Kong here. But yeah, you can tell that there's a bunch of spots I got to clean up with the Corax white before I start playing with the shading in the white. There's shades and highlights. So okay, yeah, I just wanted to move this here and let's just see what the actual colors look like. So okay, we'll get back to it. Okay, so here we are. Everything's got a matte coating on it. I did a little bit of cleanup here and there before I hit with the matte spray. Now it is time to start shading in the white areas. I gotta apologize, some of the footage from earlier was all yellowed out. I think it's because of, I think my camera was balancing off of the wet palette here. So what I did was I just move this out of the way, get back to the black base on with my cutting mat, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on this. I do have to have this a little bit here. I've got, just like on the helmet, I have the first color is going to be Citadel Colors Karak Stone, and it is, if you could see it here, let me move some of this crap out of the way. One of these days I'll do a video of my workspace. Alright, so I don't want to put this in and start bleaching out everything and it'll turn it yellow again. Okay, so I have straight paint right here, watered down a little bit, actually watered down a little bit here, watered down a little bit more. I am going to be using the glazing technique that I did on the helmet, so I just want to get a little bit of paint there, and just going to start in the creases, just like the helmet was. I might change brushes here. A little bit more on there. I did find that the helmet was a little strong in some areas, so I'm going to go a little bit bolder on the first color here. You'll see a hint of it right there. Because all I'm trying to do is just break up some of these panels with this, and honestly it's going to add a little bit of dinge to it. So by doing that, I might not even need all three colors like I did on the helmet. A couple of spots I actually just went back over with the white. A little bit more paint there. So we're working with a glaze here. That might be a little too much. And then after all of the shading is done on the white panels, I am going to go back with the white, the Vallejo, just the plain white paint, and I will go ahead and work on the middle sections here. So you'll see the Corax white around the edges, but the Vallejo white will be the color that's going to really highlight. You'll see that on the areas where the light would hit it on the shoulder pads. You'll see it basically like where I did some of the grays and blues on the black. I'll do the same with the straight white on the gloves. And it's hard to see, it's hard to tell the difference right now because of the light that I'm in. But once I actually get it on there and get him on the bike in some everyday light, as opposed to the fluorescent work light, you'll see the difference there. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this shading done here, and then I'll turn this back on. You can see what it looks like. Okay, the first shading color is down. I've got, you can see a little bit of there. It's just breaks up the white. I'm going to go ahead and get the next one down after this completely dries. I'll see what that looks like, and I'll make my decision whether I want to use 2 or 3 shading colors. Right now I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to see, and then like I said, I'll just go ahead and get the straight Vallejo white on the high spots on the armor, and we will be very close to calling this guy done. Just add a little bit of cleanup in certain spots. But you really should start to pop once I get the straight white on there. But yeah, once I get the straight white on there, there's only a couple small details here and there, like in this area right here. The entire shading took over because my brush had a little too much paint on there. I do want to metallize the teeth on the zippers on his gloves, and I want to make sure that the inside there is straight white. But okay, I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll go ahead and get the next color on. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, it is the next morning after everything is dried, and I put the next coat, or the next color down, the Skaven Blight Dinge, another Citadel color. This one has darkened up the previous work a little bit. Now all I need to do is let this dry, And I'm going to go in with the Corax white and do some cleanup before I use the Vallejo white to start doing some highlights. Okay, I am move this out of the way so it doesn't mess up my white balance. Okay, I've got most of the areas cleaned up a little bit. I think as much as I can do without completely deciding to redo the whole thing if I needed to. I think I'm good. So now I'm going to start the actual highlighting. Vallejo model color white, and like I said, the Corax white is more of like a really light gray, almost like a white with a little with gray added to it. So this is going to be for the major highlights, and like on the inside of the glove here, I'll do that with the white just so it looks a little cleaner than the outside of the glove. And then sorry, I'm a little hoarse. Long day at work today. So I will go ahead and start doing the top coat highlighting. Not necessarily edge highlighting because I'm not really doing edges. I'm just going to go on the insides. So when this is actually done, the Corax white will actually look like it's part of the shading as well. So it should actually give it a really nice effect and give it that crisp, clean white look that most stormtroopers have. Even though this one has been going through the jungle and getting a little dirty, I do plan on weathering up the boots, and I'm going to give the tips of the boots some green dry brushing, kind of like he was cutting the grass before he got on his speeder bike. But we are almost done with this guy, and I can't wait to see what he looks like. I was ready to toss him in the trash when I started the speeder bike build, but I'm pretty happy with the way he's turning out, and even excuse me, even looking like on the bike itself, looking like the headless horseman. It does look pretty cool. The helmet, it's not exactly the angle I wanted originally. I wanted more crouching down, but I think I got close to it. After I'm done with this, I'll go ahead and get some 5-minute epoxy mixed up, put the head on, get him on the bike, I get some dirt on the bottom of his boots, and yeah, we should be able to call it a day. So I will go ahead and get some footage when I'm about halfway done with the white so you can see what the difference looks like. I'm sure it, hopefully in this light you can see it, but we'll see. Okay. Okay, so I've been using progressive layers of glazes of the Vallejo white, and I'm liking what I got here. This is really getting bleached up because of being white, but yeah, I got some good highlights here. Let's see if I can change it, fix the light, and now the belt is easy to see because I just took and hit all the high spots. The helmet is almost completely dried now. After I'm done with this, I'm going to give it a complete gloss coat, and then after that's dried, I'm going to go through and give everything that should have a matte coat. I'll just brush that on. Actually, I have a satin coat. I can do that too. I think I'll do satin instead of matte. Give it a little bit of shine, but nothing too crazy like a gloss coat. And then, yeah, after the gloss coat is dried, I will go ahead and start dirtying this guy up, making him actually look like he's been in the forest for a while. So I think the next time you see him, his head will be glued on. It won't be the headless rider anymore. And he might be really shiny because of the gloss coat. So we shall get onto that. Okay, be back in a bit. Okay, so I am calling this guy done. It's a piece that I was originally going to just toss out because the original sculpt was pretty bad, but with some modifying of it, it looks a lot better than the original. The pull in here, got some nice weathering on there. The boots I just finished up with a little bit of dry brushing, and it's hard to tell in this light, but yeah, I got some green stains on the toes. I'm going to put him outside, get some final pictures of him actually on the bike itself, and I'll put him on the Lazy Susan so I can turn around so you can see what he looks like in natural light. But yep, for all intents and purpose, this is a finished model. Okay, I will go ahead and take him outside, sit him on the bike, get some final pictures. I'm happy with this. The kit is still available you can find it on eBay, but be prepared to either have a really goofy looking biker scout or have a nice little challenge on your hands for modifying. But let's get outside and get some pictures. Okay, so here is the completed model. Just on my front porch out here. I figured the trees in the back would make a nice little addition. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Not sure if the light out here is better than the fluorescent that I had in the basement, but yeah, I did a nice amount of weathering on the bike. I did some staining on his boots there. If that comes out, yep, there's a little bit of green staining on the tips of his boots. I guess he was mowing the grass before he got on his bike. But yeah, that is it. So I want to thank you for joining me on this. If you like the video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead, because I'm just getting started. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of all new videos that I upload. So until the next project begins, thanks for watching. Oh, so you thought this was over? No, 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 no. I can't finish this model without having him on his bike and actually lighten him up. So here we go.